and welcome you to the Olympic Natural Resources Center and this first public meeting of the Olympic Peninsula Collaborative. Well, that's not true. You guys had your other meeting in Port Angeles, which unfortunately I missed. At any rate, I am director of this facility, the Olympic Natural Resources Center. This facility is a campus of the University of Washington. It was created in part to help work on natural resource issues on the peninsula. A core part of our mission is also to provide a neutral forum for useful debate about natural resources issues. So I'm extremely pleased that the collaborative is here today and using our facility, and we're seeking to be involved with the collaborative into the future. Let me say that, just a few quick words, I've worked a lot with collaborative groups, mostly down in Oregon. I started writing down the list. It's kind of long. Applegate Partnership, the Lakeview Stewardship Group in Southern Oregon, several Eastern Oregon collaborative groups, a bunch of watershed councils as well. And I've found in the past great value in these efforts. They can be long and drawn out and feel slower than you would like, but in the end, you can see great value. So I hope that's a word of encouragement for everyone as well. Let me finish by thanking especially Congressman Kilmer for analyzing this effort, which I think is incredibly important, to the rest of the collaborative members who've been working hard, and the Olympic National Forest. I think this is a very, very encouraging development. And lastly, to the audience for coming out today to participate. So with that, I believe I
kick it to me.
Kick it to you.
Yeah. Well, hi everybody. It's great to be home in Clallam County, and I'm grateful that you're all here with us. I want to thank the mayor and the council members who are here, and Commissioner Peach I saw here. I'm very grateful to all the community leaders and industry leaders who are taking time out of their schedules to be here. My godmother's here also. Hi, Auntie Edna. Listen, I was born and raised on the peninsula in PA, and as a consequence, I get what the discussions related to our forests mean to Forks and to Port Angeles and other communities on the peninsula. You know, on one hand, forests mean jobs. They manage right, they support mills, and they support middle-class jobs, and they support our local economies. And on the other hand, healthy forests are also important when it comes to protecting our clean water, and they're part of what makes this such a glorious place for people to come and visit and vacation and recreate and just check out the awesomeness that we have in the natural resources here. And growing up on the peninsula, I saw firsthand how tough it is to balance those issues. The lifeblood of my hometown and of Forks and a whole bunch of other communities has been the timber industry. And I know, I grew up knowing a lot of families whose jobs were tied into it. I still know folks whose jobs are tied into it. And we saw as harvest levels declined over time, I had friends whose parents lost their jobs and had to find new work, and those stories aren't unique. That's happened to a whole lot of folks on the peninsula. And frankly, those experiences motivated me. They motivated me to work professionally in economic development for a decade. They motivated me to get involved in public service, because we got to get this economy moving, and we've got to see more opportunities for local jobs. And I just fundamentally don't want our region's top export to be our young people. We've got to have those opportunities for people. And growing up around here, I'm also conscious of how these issues can divide us. That conflict has been a pretty good method for employing attorneys, but it hasn't really done much for the health of our local economies, and it hasn't done much for the health of our forests, for that matter. So when I first got this job, I made a decision, to try to turn down the volume a little bit and try to move us past some of the old debates. It's easy to stand on the sidelines and throw rocks at each other, but it really hasn't gotten us very far. And so that's really the genesis of this Olympic Peninsula Forest Collaborative. And I really want to thank the people who are here, who put just a ton of time and energy and even financial commitment to try to move the needle forward on how to better manage our resources on the Olympic Peninsula. And there's some of the folks in the audience who've been pretty active in this as well, and I want to thank you for that. We had a group of folks here who over the years, who in the past have really been at odds with each other, from conservation groups to the timber industry, and they've been working together to try to find some common ground on these issues. And they found that both sides agreed that there are areas where we can more responsibly manage our forests, where we can actually increase harvest levels in a responsible way and provide more opportunities for local industry and benefit the health of our forests too. And we engaged the Forest Service, and we're going to do a slight diversion from the schedule and have Rita Ford speak after me. But we talked with the Forest Service, and one of the things they recommended was to look at this collaborative approach. Because we realized that we need a different approach. We can't just keep doing what we've been doing. We need a smarter approach to support working forests. And one of those approaches is this idea of collaboratives, which in different regions, both in Oregon and other parts of Washington and other parts of the country, have actually successfully built consensus around projects and outcomes to actually make it easier for projects to move forward and become a reality. So we're here after about 2 years of trying to bring people together to see if we could actually build some trust that we need to increase harvest levels and to restore our forests and actually support local communities. In May, you mentioned the meeting we had in PA, we officially launched the collaborative. And these folks were involved outside of that in countless meetings and phone calls and forest tours where we got to see projects up close and personal. And a lot of that effort just to work with each other and find some common ground was really important. And frankly, I wish Congress could take a page out of that and figure out a way to work together and actually talk to each other civilly. So that was phase one, was actually just trying to do that legwork of finding some common ground. Now we're entering phase two, which is, we found some consensus. Now it's time to actually push for more outcomes. I want to see us increase harvest levels. I want to see us improve forest health. And we actually brought out the Secretary of Agriculture, Tom Vilsack, to the peninsula. And he said something important. He said, this is an example of what needs to be done more of in this country. And he said this is a priority for him and for the Forest Service and for the USDA. They've been talking to us about trying to make some grants available to put this effort on steroids. But here's the thing. We can't have this be successful. We can't finish projects successfully. We can't make this work without the input of communities like Forest on the public's participation too. And that's why we're here. So over the next hour plus, you'll hear from some of the folks who have been working on this, and we're going to open it up to you all for questions. And I want to have a good discussion, and I want to get to as many people as who want to have dialogue with us as possible. So I'm going to ask you, if you have a lengthy statement for us, give me a copy of it. I will distribute it to everybody, but I want to make sure we get to a lot of people. So I'm going to ask you if you can keep it to a cogent question or comment rather than reading us a long statement. That'll be more respectful to more people in the room so that they get a chance to have input as well. And I can tell from the turnout here that you guys care about this too, and so do I. I want to thank you for that. And so with that, speaking of issuing thanks, I want to thank Rita LaFord from the Forest Service and her team, who put in a lot of time and have been fantastic to work with, and we've been blessed to have as part of this effort. So I'm going to kick it over to Rita.
All right, thank you. So as Derek said, I'm Rita LaFord. I'm the Forest Supervisor for the Olympic National Forest. And in general, I want to share the agency values, the role collaboratives can play and helping us both advance both environmental and economic goals. And in particular, I'm really thrilled with the opportunity to work with the Olympic Peninsula Collaborative, because while Derek thanked the forest for their work, the real work has been done by the collaborative, so I thank them. And I'm here, I want to demonstrate my support and appreciation for the collaborative, along with my local district ranger and natural resources staff officer, because without the collaborative, we wouldn't be as far along. So in general, collaboratives add value, and what the Olympic Peninsula Collaborative has done in their short duration is they've started talking to each other respectfully, effectively, and they have personally helped the Forest Timber Program accelerate our accomplishments. And how they did that is they assisted the field layout of the Donkey timber sale, which ultimately yielded 7 million board feet from 302 acres. And I only have a 3-person timber sale crew, so they basically more than doubled my production capacity. And that allowed us to sell that sale and another sale earlier in the year, this past year. So we could actually not just sell it and advertise it, but we could all clear all the financial paperwork to actually get that contract on the street. And that is invaluable, as we can then continue with other sales. So they did preliminary recon for me using the Forest Service provided maps delineating boundaries, assessing the proposed logging systems, extra boots on the ground, invaluable. They also did some testing of handheld GPS units, which proved to be a high enough accuracy that we proposed to the regional office the flexibility to start using those in the future in lieu of conventional, more time-consuming dragging tapes and chains for acreage determinations. And the region has verbally supported it, and will be giving us our written authority to do that. But that's going to be another time and cost savings, which will free up my folks to get more done to help the environmental restoration objectives, as well as the local economy in terms of getting more timber sales and restoration projects out into the community. And I will stay around as long as folks are interested after to go into whatever depth folks are interested in on the particulars of how they've helped. But that's just one easy example from the start. What we're embarking on now, they've demonstrated their competent knowledge and understanding the field operations and working together. Now they are assisting us in a planning project to clear another area for a new timber sale, and they're referring to that as the pilot restoration treatment. And they've already done preliminary recon, provided us good information. The Forest Service, of course, will retain our responsibility of quality control and assurance, make sure all the legal compliances are fulfilled. But again, they give us extra horsepower and competent horsepower to get more done. So with that, I don't want to take up too much more time, so I will pass it back to
Thanks.
Eric, the moderator.
Yeah, I guess I'm sort of MC. So next up, we have two folks who've been very active in this effort. Matt Comiskey from the American Forest Resources Council and John Owen from Pew Charitable Trust. They're going to walk through the collaborative sort of governance document and some of the work that's been done up to this point around kind of setting the goals and mission and the process forward. So, kick it to you.
I get to start, John? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm not going to head over to the podium, but I am going to stand up because having sat in the back of a long room like this before and heard somebody stand talking at the front door.
Actually, does everybody have a copy of this? Or do we need to hand them out? All right, we'll pass this stack, if you wouldn't mind, back. Oh, whoops. Yeah, oh no, that's good.
So as Congressman Kilmer pointed out, we've been working on this for almost 2 years now. got started actually shortly after I joined AFRC, so that kind of helps me keep in mind how long we've been doing this. But in forming any kind of new group, it always takes a little bit of, especially groups that traditionally have not normally kind of really talked to each other in a room. It takes a lot of sitting down around tables. We actually wanted to reconfigure this room a little bit more so that we weren't an audience and panel, but just the sizes of that room make it a little challenging to do that, so we ended up with the format that we did. But that sitting around talking, going out on some field trips really helps parties from different positions start to learn to kind of talk more about from their values, what do they value. And I think one of the big things that was really came out of it was, you know, this need to not only do ecosystem restoration, but rural community restoration. It's, you know, they're not mutually exclusive. So we started in an effort that, quite honestly, you know, it's just kind of like a baby growing up. You have to crawl before you walk. To put together this governance document. A lot of the actual nuts and bolts of it were pulled from other collaboratives that you've heard Bernard talk about from around the region. We really tried to seek out what has worked in other places and what hasn't worked, and throw what hasn't worked away. If it's been proven to be a failure, why try to use it to reinvent the wheel? So the big thing we really felt important was that we had to come together around a set of goals. And you'll see those on the front page and the back of the second page that really outline the direction the collaborative wants to head, the common ground that folks on the collaborative need to form that group around. So, I don't know, John, if you got anything more you want to.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, just to echo what I think a lot of folks have said, what has been, oh, sorry, let me stand up. So, just to echo what other folks have said, what has been actually really great about it, it has been hard, but also great in the 2-year process that's gotten us to this point, because through a lot of legwork and a willingness by all parties to try to actually find common ground, which is such a cliche, it sounds, you know, hollow. We were able to realize that there really actually are specific things that both environmentalists and industry actually agree on that would be net positives for each interest. And so neither side had to compromise their values in order to proceed and move forward. And that just came through trust. And so the goals that you see on this document are all things that that every member of the collaborative, which is up there and also in the document itself, has officially endorsed and signed off on. And they are the guiding principles by which everyone up here agrees. And that means that those are the areas that we agree on, and so we focus on what are the areas we agree on rather than the areas we disagree on, and then try to proceed with just that. And so you'll see on this a little bit about structure, et cetera, on the second and third page. Later on in the program, we'll be, Matt and I will be talking about passing around sign-up sheets for folks to officially join the collaborative as stakeholder members. But I think before we do that, it's probably good to now turn it over to, did you have more on the governance side, Matt?
No, I think really each, just for a quick show of hands, how many in the room have heard of collaboratives? How many of the room have served on a collaborative? Really, really small. So as with any organization, you have to come up with some kind of governing structure. Every one of these collaboratives I participate, I hate to say it, like 4 or 5. Some of them just by tracking them via email, some of them actually on the board. Each one of these is very unique to the geographic location location they're in and their governance structure. So what we did is we tried to pull from some of those that we knew were very effective and try to create this outline of who's going to actually do the kind of the day-to-day business work. And so that's what you see outlined here as far as the board of directors, the officers, a coordinator, which is what Congressman Kilmer talked about earlier with Secretary Vilsack trying to help us with. One thing that we found really around the region, a coordinator is an administrative assistant that keeps the wheels moving, setting meeting appointments, those type of things, keeping minutes. So this has really been kind of put together, took a while to get put in place. And it's, you know, it's a living document as really, we're all very committed to maintaining the purpose and goals, but the rest of this document, as the collaborative grows and morphs into things and builds more trust, will probably slowly evolve as the collaborative evolves. So that's really about all I've got to say, and I'll pass it back.
Okay, yeah, so, yeah, I think it's,
So next up, we've got Derek Churchill, who is a forester with the Stewardship Forestry Consulting, who's been an awesome help in this process. Jill Silver, who's with the Olympic Forest Coalition Board, and David Marshall with Sierra Pacific Industries. And they're going to talk about some of the pilot projects and different forest treatments that the group is considering. So I'll kick it to you guys.
Okay. Again, I work as a forest consultant. I'm also a physician at the University of Washington and have worked on quite a number of collaboratives in Washington, primarily in Washington State, a little bit in Oregon, and I was actually a member of the Pinchot Partners down on the GP in Packwood and Randall, the Cowlitz Valley, for quite a while. And I've worked with a bunch on the east side of the state, including the Northeast Collaborative on the Colville National Forest. And I think in particular those two, as well as other ones, have been around for long enough, as Bernard and others were saying, that are seeing real results of not just more board feet coming off the forest, but the ability for the agency to do better projects environmentally, ecologically, and this idea of a win-win is real, and things, the environment, social environment, and the conflict around national forest management has really improved. Again, everything hasn't gotten perfect. There's still conflict, there's still challenges like anything, but the improvement is tangible and real. To the extent that that's dramatically improved the economy of say Packwood or Randall, obviously things don't change overnight, but you talk to people there, it is having an impact for sure, and I'd say especially in Northeast Washington. So again, I've been doing this for about 10 years or so, and it takes a while, but the improvements are real. So again, focusing on this collaborative, as Rita mentioned, our first project was to say, hey, let's just get out there and try to add capacity to what the forest is doing already, and that's certainly one of our goals moving forward, is to say, where can we just add capacity to the forest that's seen their staff cut quite a bit. We have a lot of expertise within the collaborative, and so we, as Rita said, took this donkey sale, got out there, did a bunch of layout work, logging systems work, and we hope to continue to do that kind of thing. In addition, in doing that, trying to figure out ways to increase the efficiency of how the forest does business. The agency folks have been great. It's definitely a partnership where we're trying to identify where are those areas that we can do more with less, or just get more stuff laid out, get more projects moving. And I think when you have people from all these different interests, including member of Congress, and we're also networked with other collaboratives. That gives us real leverage to change some of the ways that the Forest Service does business in terms of implementation, some of the rules and stuff that are sort of getting in the way of doing things more efficiently. So it's a real value of these collaboratives, and I think we're already, whether it's the GPS thing or other things, starting to see, or not starting, we are seeing some improvement in that regard. So both capacity, efficiency, and then our other area that we're really working on is this pilot project, which is it's 78, what's going to be 70 acres of commercial harvest, and we've chosen this site right out here on the Solduck River, right on the river, adjacent to the Solduck River, called the H to Z project area. I believe there's some maps out there showing where it is, and we're also discussing doing a second site as well as part of the goal. And this is a small project, and therefore we can do it under what's called a categorical exclusion, which means that the NEPA analysis doesn't take as long as doing a full environmental analysis, and so it's something that we can work through relatively quickly and get this project out on the street fairly soon. I think we're shooting for hopefully next spring, next summer to actually have it be on the street, sort of our goal. And the idea again with doing a pilot project is that it gives us a chance as a collaborative to have those discussions about what kinds of forestry practices people can be comfortable with and can support. And so while it's just a small project, it therefore doesn't allows for more experimentation and to say, hey, and Dave can talk about some of the things that we want to try. The Forest Service currently, obviously focuses on thinning primarily younger stands to accelerate the development of old habitat and whatnot. And we're obviously still doing that. That's the main thrust of management on the Olympic National Forest. We're not talking about changing those big picture Northwest Forest Plan within this collaborative. But within that idea, there's certainly room for trying, different types of gaps or different approaches, and I'll let these folks talk to. So that's the kind of thing we want to try in these pilot projects is, what innovations or different types of practices can we do, and then looking, okay, what are the environmental or ecological trade-offs or benefits of those as well. So, and through this, as I'm sure a lot of you know, there's really been a lot of research into the effects of thinning, or this whole idea that we can manage forests and improve habitat as well as generating wood and revenue. A lot of it's, Bernard's been involved in this for a long time, as well as many other scientists, and we really learned a lot about how we can do this in a way that is a win-win. So the science, I think, is really there to support this notion. So I'll let either of you jump in.
I'll jump up. Thanks, Derek. He did a pretty good job explaining what we're doing. I'm mostly excited about this pilot project we're going to start. It is the H to Z, like you said, 70 acres, and we're kind of going away from the norm. The norm has been, we've been thinning from flow in these, mostly in LSR stands, late sterile reserve stands, and we've had limitations on the diameters we can go to. So we're out there, and Pete's in the audience, he knows what we're talking about. You can go up to a 20-inch DBH, 24-inch stump, or whatever it may be, and we have certain limitations. So we're really just creating, not a true, we want to have structure in the stand. So what we're trying on H to Z is we're going to have a 1/4 to an acre patch openings where all the trees are going to be cut, and we're also going to thin trees. And the beauty of that is it's an AMA. So in AMA, you don't have the restrictions you do in LSR. So we're going to be doing some small openings, more, what we call group selections, true groups, where you're not leaving trees out there, and we're going to make them big enough where sunlight. And this is stuff that the Forest Service, at least since I've been here, I haven't seen much of the Olympic do this. And I'm excited about maybe this, if we have success doing this, then in fact, we'll be able to practice that in the regular timber sale program. And we all know that this will lower costs to the loggers. It'll provide wood to the mills. And I'm hoping that these projects will have incremental volume to their annual volume that we will add to, the 15 or 20 or whatever it is this year. Maybe we can add 50% more volume by doing this. So that's my goal, and I'm excited because I sat with Toby out there and Jill, and we went out there, and we actually got along and agreed on things, and we came up with these together. That's what I'm excited about. We came up with this together. It wasn't like Sierra was going to do this way. There was their ideas to do this. And we would say, well, I'd say, maybe, well, how about 2 acres? And they'd say, oh, no, let's try 1 to see how it works. But we're talking, and that's key. I mean, that we're talking, and I'm really excited about that. And I'm hoping that this can evolve into something better and bigger. So, really excited about that. And that's all I have to say, really.
Olympic Forest Coalition, Toby Thaler's here as well from Olympic Forest Coalition, has had a lot of mistrust about forestry on the peninsula for decades now. And I grew up on the peninsula. I grew up down the road from here in a stand that used to be the youngest and is now the oldest in my neighborhood. So my experience has been watching overstocked stands not have any diversity, and I turned into an ecologist. I'm an ecologist who works in the forests out here. I have learned thinning works on the ground with Randy Messenbrink and other folks from DNR and other folks from industry, and I see the results in terms of creating older forest structure that benefits all of the critters that live in the forest that we are required to maintain and that we have conflict over. And my goal is solutions. I'm connected to this community. I've worked for the tribes for years, and I continue to work with the tribes. My focus is restoration of forest ecosystem services. It's a big term. It means what the forest gives to us. Congressman Kilmer mentioned clean water, but it's clean air, it's timber, it's food, it's fish, it's soil, it's holding the soil together, it's lots of different things, it's carbon sequestration, etc. So Olympic Forest Coalition is learning along with the collaborative, and certainly a lot of trust has been engendered by coming to agreement in the field. When you get your boots on the ground, you see things differently than when you're in a conference room looking at some things on paper. And looking at the forest stands that are overstocked and under-diverse. They lack the shrubs, they lack the birds, they lack the mammals, they lack the things that we're actually wanting and needing to improve, and that the National Forest, the Northwest Forest Plan supports, is focused on. We see that this is an opportunity to get some of the goals with scientific justification under Northwest Forest Plan guidelines in adapted management areas, AMA, and test things, show our different prescriptions. We're testing the gaps, we're testing skips, we're testing leaving different species, we're testing letting wind operate on dying trees to create snags. And we're going to go back and monitor these things, and we're doing them in very small acreages so that we can report back that yes, indeed, this was the outcome that we had mutually desired, including supporting what David was talking about, which is increasing the amount of wood that's coming off and the ease of getting that to that wood, and having less of a struggle. So I'm really excited about this. I feel I'm appreciating everybody working together. And if Toby would like to say something, may I open it up for Toby? He's up here.
I'll give you a minute.
Thank you.
So I'm a policy analyst which means I read the science that these guys publish, and I think I get it. It seems to work, but there's not a lot here. And what we're hoping to do is, through this collaborative, generate resources through, what's the kind of sale where the money comes back?
Stewardship.
Stewardship. That's one of the things we really want at the Forest Coalition, is to have the money stay in the community, and creates jobs of monitoring. And we talk about these adaptive management areas. Well, adaptive management means monitoring, and the prescriptions are very explicit about setting up GPS spots and doing what Jill said to make sure that it's working. So we're really looking forward to having it be an example and expand the prescriptions to, I can't remember, I think you said it, to use these prescriptions to inform how the Forest Service does these sales so that we get both benefits. Thank you.
So let me kick it back over to John and to Matt to talk about membership and kind of the public engagement process. So.
Yeah, I'm actually going to, before I dive into that, touch a little bit more on the stewardship aspect of what Toby brought up. One of the things that we're looking at doing with this H2Z project is a stewardship aspect, which basically what that means is any excess receipts, rather than all the revenue from the timber harvest going to the Treasury in Washington, D.C., it can stay here on the forest. That allows that capacity building for a whole variety of things, whether it's helping capacity building with just some of the normal work the Forest Service has to do. If there's actually what we refer to as retained receipts in the future going down, that can do things for helping things like the collaborative I'm on the GP. We fund a ton of money to road maintenance. We fund a ton of money to noxious weed treatments. And all those kind of dollars go back into the community to help create jobs. So it's not just revenue. So I think, you know, as you see going forward, there'll kind of be a mix of these type of stewardship projects and traditional timber sales, because it gives the Forest Service added capacity and some actual additional flexibility. And, you know, there's mixed opinion on them out there, but it does create some more opportunities for management going forward. So, and one of the things I also want to mention too is I'll go a little bit deeper on Derek's comment about the CE. That's still NEPA. I know that I've heard a lot of folks, you know, well, CE, that means you're not doing NEPA, which is basically the environmental analysis. Really all a CE is they've already identified what the expected known effects are. And so if you do a treatment that falls within these expected known effects, you don't have to do the in-depth amount of analysis because it's already been done on similar projects in the area in that particular category. So it's not a shortcut through environmental analysis, it's just kind of an accelerated process because you've already done a lot of the work in similar types of events. So, so I think, you know, that's kind of one thing to keep in mind. And then just, you know, the whole volume aspect of it is that hopefully by increasing, we hear pace and scale, that's really typically kind of more of an east side discussion in fire prone, but, you know, we had a 2,500 acre fire in the park this summer. Bugs and wind and other types of disturbance are, you know, real for even the west side of the peninsula, the east side of the peninsula. So increasing that pace and scale, and one of the things coming out of that is the ability by doing treatments like this in the AMA, we'll learn more about creating that stand structure quicker. Just traditional commercial thinning doesn't change stand structure, you know, canopy layers, those type of things. So, and an outcome of that hopefully will be an increase in that volume output from the forest to maintain the infrastructure that we have and hopefully enhance the infrastructure that we have. So which goes to, you know, help building that whole economic aspect of it. So I just kind of wanted to touch on those quickly before we dive into the membership. And John, maybe I'll let you.
Sure. Right, yeah, thanks, Matt. And,
I'll pass those out.
okay, yeah, that'd be great. So stand up. Yeah, and one thing, I mean, I think, you know, agree with everything that's been said here. And I think that what's very important for us to underscore is that the type of treatments and prescriptions that the collaborative has agreed to test in this pilot project are all things that industry sees as an added benefit because it will help increase volume. But the conservation community sees these as a net positive because they are treatments that have a strong foundation in science, but are also completely permitted and underneath the Northwest Forest Plan. And they are treatments that could increase habitat and old growth characteristics in these stands at a faster rate. And then through the stewardship component, it'll help bring these funds to help do more aquatic restoration projects. So the whole exciting thing about all of this is that these conservation communities see this all as win-win. And one thing, I mean, I think Dave's rosy volume wishes like aside, the collaborative as a whole does not actually have a position as to setting any sort of a target amount on volume, but essentially we want to increase it, and that's one of the goals that you'll see over and over again. So we're all committed to making that happen, but we're not specifically setting an actual target volume to measure success one way or the other, because we think that there's going to be a lot of success, there already has been, that should be measured by the net positive of those of our projects compared to what stuff was before, rather than hitting a specific goal. So the next part of this is that, now that we've gone through all of the work the last 2 years to reach agreement on all of this stuff, we're excited to have the first public meeting, so we now want to sign folks up as stakeholder members to the collaborative. And you'll see in the governance document that that's part of this, is that we want to invite folks to participate. And what we'll do is pass around sign-up sheets. But Matt, do you want to talk about adherence to the goals as being an important thing before you sign up? Take a look. Yeah.
So you'll see in that handout under general membership, it says all members must abide by the stated purpose and goals of the OPC as outlined above. One of the reasons that was put in there, how do I say this delicately, it has to actually, some learnings from a different collaborative not associated with the Olympic National Forest, was asked to actually bring, that collaborative when they started was a very resource-based economic development, watershed health, restoration collaborative. They were asked to bring recreation into their mission statement. Quite honestly, working on that collaborative, it derails us from success oftentimes because it's a topic that's outside of the wheelhouse of that normal collaborative and that larger group. So as we all worked on trying to come to consensus and trust and building all this, it was really decided that, where our common ground was in these bullets. And maintaining that and keeping that allegiance to these bullets was very important to the group here to maintain our trust and keep moving forward. And so that's why we're pretty stringent on adhering to those bullets and moving forward, is so that we can have, the more different paths you can go down, you get less done. So really it's to maintain and keep a narrow path that we keep going so that we can show success moving forward. So that's why that statement's in there, that's why those bullets were very carefully crafted, was so that this collaborative continues to move forward on what our shared mission and goals are, and to learn from some other collaboratives that have had to take a little step back when something outside of what they were originally founded for was added to them. So.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And so that means that before you sign up, please, it's very important that you take time, if you haven't yet, to read these 6 bullets. And we're asking folks that they must be committed to supporting and improving of all 6 of those bullets in order to participate and sign up for the collaborative. And so when you sign up as a stakeholder member, what that means is that moving forward, we will, after this, be informing folks about the next steps on this via email. So please put your email on there. And we're going to be having a series of other public meetings like this one and this first one in Forks around the peninsula over the coming year, and that and we'll be asking folks to sign up. And then during the course of that time, we'll also be having some field trips to look at stuff, and we'll be bringing folks to come along and participate and provide feedback and input on various projects and moving forward on that. Did I cover that well?
Yes, you did.
Okay. So I think we're on that.
And I think we've stayed almost on schedule, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
So now we want to open it up to you all. You heard, I think, about the work that's happened up to this point and about the value of this approach. I imagine some of you may have questions, and this is the time to talk from. You've got a table full of people who've spent a couple years on this. Our role, as Lita said, my role has been mostly just catalytic, trying to get this put together, but this is very much a collaborative group, not a Derek Kilmer group. So I want you to feel free to ask questions to any of the folks here, and I'll open up to you, and just raise your hands. Go ahead. Yep.
I'm Edna Peterson. I represent the Port Angeles Business Association. I know how Derek runs things. My comments are written down. I'll give them to you.
All right.
Everybody. Oh, sorry. Got your bill. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry, I didn't know how many there were of you, so I saved a tree and I printed half.
ONRC has a copy or?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Kenneth Riando, Port Angeles. I see there's some folks here at the table that made no statement. Is there anything from those folks that is pertinent?
I'm Norm Schaff. I work for Maryland Rain. I've been involved with the collaborative from the very beginning. Thanks for coming. And our interest is to find a better way of reaching some solutions instead of the head-to-head banging that's been going on. We kind of got involved with some of these folks during the Wild Olympics campaign and reached resolution of some of our issues, which was very productive. And so that provided an entree into how we can behave and work together, hopefully in the future. We don't have a direct stake in the game as far as, we're not purchasing federal timber. We have our own private timberlands, but we're very interested in the health of the industry and in the health of the forests in this community. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, Knox Marshall, Murphy Company. We have mills in Oregon and Washington, and we're a little bit different than a lot of companies. We produce veneer, and it goes into panel construction, so we're not the traditional lumber mill, but kind of in the engineered wood products for them. We have the technology to support an industry that is going to provide a lot of jobs, and we've actually seen success outside the Olympic Peninsula. And so, we're really engaged in pressing forward to encourage the group to come together. In Southern Oregon, we've got projects of similar, consequences and similar efforts that are working, and the pace and scale is significantly more than we've seen on the peninsula. So we're encouraged that we're taking the first steps to move forward. And these things work, and it's not something that we take lightly. We have a mill in Rogue River that basically came out of the ashes that was in bankruptcy. We rebuilt it, and we've counted on public timber supply to support that facility and continue to see that opportunity on the peninsula if we can get to more resolution in this collaborative. So we're here to support it and do whatever it takes to make things successful. So thank you.
You got anything to add?
Well, say who I am. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm Paul Bialkowski. I represent Interfor in Port Angeles, but in Longview, Washington. Oregon, and like our other facilities, Interfor participates in collaborative efforts and groups in Central Oregon and in Northwest Oregon as well. So we support the process. We find that it's valuable for not only for our facility, but also valuable for the forest and the economies and the ecology of the areas in which we operate in. So we're happy to be a participant.
Tom O'Keefe, American Whitewater. We're a river conservation organization. But for myself personally, I've spent a tremendous amount of time out here. I worked at the University of Washington as a research scientist, have a PhD in aquatic ecology, did several years of research out here, and I'm just, our organization's part of the collaborative, and then, just sort of personally, we have an interest in rivers and water quality, and I have a scientific background from working out here, and then just personally, this is where I come to recreate and enjoy. My family was out here for Thanksgiving, just to enjoy this place.
Yeah, go ahead. And then I got
Owen, citizen of Clallam County. It sounds like your H to Z proposal is what I would classify as a Forest Service small timber harvest contract. Kind of in line with that. With that thought in mind, my suggestion actually to the collaborative is, would you consider, these small timber contracts seem to be a big issue for the Forest Service. This was well demonstrated in the Securable Schools Act in northeastern California. It went out to help with the administration. So I'm proposing to you, would you consider making suggestions and proposals to such programs such as Secure Rural Schools to expand on the administrative ability of these small timber contracts to help support our mill and to also get our forest back into health?
Yeah, maybe Ed, we can talk to you about this afterwards, just a bit more specific.
I guess I'll just say, just so I understand what you're saying, Maury, do you want more of these, the projects that just go out to small businesses?
No, the small timber harvest contract.
Okay.
It seems like that seems to be a major hiccup for the Forest Service to administer. And it sounds like from listening to you today, that's one aspect of your efforts is to try to overcome some of these inefficiencies of the Forest Service. And I'm thinking
You're saying
that
to try to do those, but to make them work better, easier to do.
more efficient and to use the resources that are already there, like the Secure Rural Schools project.
Okay.
That can help facilitate that.
Well, I think that's our intent, and I wrote that down. Any tool that we can find is going to make things work better.
Yeah, our intent is certainly, as you might, is to keep the work as local as possible. And on the peninsula, that's actually fairly doable, particularly out here. But yeah, any tools that we can use to ensure that, for sure. So.
Sir, I got you, and then I got you. Go ahead.
Yeah. My name's David Hahn, and I live at mile 41 of the Salduck River. We've been there since 1937. I'm the fourth generation. And but why that's important to you guys is we're surrounded on three sides by the Olympic National Forest. And a mile from our property line is your H to Z thinning project. And I got some serious concerns about it. Okay, on our property, we have a tributary of the Salduck River. We signed up in 1998 with the Department of Fish and Wildlife and the Pacific Coast Salmon Coalition to provide salmon habitat in our creek. It's a spring-fed stream. It's 800 feet long, and 600 feet we own, and 200 feet are inside the property boundary of the Olympic National Forest. So we signed up in '98, back before this state had a forest and fish law, back before the timber companies were forced to do something. We signed up to provide habitat for salmon. And we've done a great deal of work there in the last 16 years. And I'm concerned that your H to Z sale might impact that stream, particularly in the summertime, when we had this drought, that stream provided a home for salmon. The drought did not affect it because it's spring fed, where all the other streams were going dry. I'm worried about your H to Z sale because that whole area behind the creek butts up against your sale, and that's all of wetland. It's all a huge sponge that collects water, and it comes out at Eagle Creek Springs. And that's an area that provides outstanding habitat for the native cutthroat, trout, steelhead, and the native coho salmon. And I would like, Jill is going to come out after this meeting to do a field trip. Talked to her already about it. I'm welcome to anybody else who wants to come out, and you'll see some of the best habitat that the Olympic National Forest has for salmon habitat. It's not just that we restored it, but we enhanced it. And that's important, because we were allowed to do, through the Fish and Wildlife, everything that you can do to help a salmon survive. We've done that there. Okay, it's not a rearing pond, it's not a hatchery situation, it's strictly native salmon and trout, and it's just enhanced property. So if you want to get with Joe, I welcome you to come and see it.
Thank you, David. So I've seen videos of David's incredible project. He does a lot of underwater videography, and he's got some amazing fish use and habitat and action tool videos. So the Northwest Forest Plan has the widest buffers, the most protective standards of any forestry operation that I know of. And we're here to learn from you, David, which is why I want to come out with you and make sure that one of the things that we've been doing is mapping water and identifying areas that will be better left as skips where no harvest will occur. And we're also working really hard with everyone to identify road location and layout and
no new roads,
no new
just
roads.
the skids.
Yeah, we're working really hard on the road issues. And I've done research on the Hoh River that shows how quickly the understory comes back in thinning operations to shade the soil. And I have data on groundwater heat transport. And I think that's one of your concerns is the spring drying up with less water. And so we very much want to follow up and talk with you about all of those aspects. And we appreciate you bringing it forward. Look forward to going out with you this afternoon.
Hi, I'm Jim Bauer, and I'm representing Bauer Logging Company. And I was going to say I represent my two sons, Eric and Monty, but I'm not going to say that because they're always giving me heck afterwards saying, Dad, did you have to say that in public? Anyway, I'll try not to be quite as blunt as I am most of the time right now. So
My kids do the same.
Oh, do they? Okay. Anyway, I guess that's the way it is. But, you know, loosely quoting Winston Churchill, he says, you know, democracy is a very poor form of government. But he said, unfortunately, it's probably the best one we have as human beings. And that's a little bit like I look at these stewardship contracts. And now you're looking at a guy, Derek, I think I worked with you on the first one you ever did, right? Yeah. Yeah, okay. And we just were awarded another one. So I know a little bit about stewardship contracts. And so I do support them, although I have one burning question here, but I don't know who to ask it for. So maybe somebody could just answer me. When you lay out a 69-acre tract, so you don't have to do all the HPAs and all the assessment work, I can barely get started as a logger before I got to stop. It's not a money-making thing, guys. I'm just here to tell you that. I know Dave, he said you had an argument about a 2-acre gap or a 1/4-acre gap. You know, those things have been around for quite a long time, because I've been doing this forest service work for many years. I don't know what the point of them is exactly. Maybe some of you guys got an idea why we do skips and gaps. Because up there in Slab Camp, I've gone back and looked at that, and I can't see what value they really serve, to be real frank with you. But I just wondered, my question is this, not to take up all your time, who considers the economics of doing a 69-acre job? Who looks at all the stuff that you throw out there for us as loggers to perform and go through the hoops, right? To try to make a living. Does anybody consider that up here on this council? All of you?
All of us.
Okay, well then I'd like to know what your expertise is.
Well, I'll start, try not to take all the bullets, but, no, well, first of all, I think that, you know, the 70 acre, 69 acre, you know, that, we're doing that, as I mentioned, as a pilot project to get going and to develop kind of common understanding, and that's the limit where we can do the CE. If we could do a 100 acre or a 200 acre or a 500 acre sale, you know, we would do that, and we certainly have the intention of doing some larger projects, you know, the next one. So we're not, no, you know, we'd love to do a larger project, and that's our plan in the future. This is ground-based, so that helps a little bit. You know, 70 acre ground-based is a little bit easier to move into than a cable operation. And in terms of the, you know, efficiency and all the stuff that, you know, you have to deal with as operators, again, I think the conversations that we have a lot in the group, you know, Dave can talk about it, you know, we're there with you. There's a lot of stuff that could be made more efficient and easier, and that's certainly one of our goals is to try to work on that stuff. And, you know, it's hard. A lot of these rules come from contracts that were, you know, are federal contracts, and you have to go all the way to DC to change stuff, and it's, you know, it's not just as easy as saying, hey, this is stupid, let's not do it. You know, it takes a lot of time and work to get this stuff changed, and like you're saying, democracy is a slow, messy business, but that's what we're trying to do here. And again, we are making incremental progress, and hopefully that will increase and has in other places. So
we can't control what the Forest Service tells us to do, Jim. I mean, you're talking about the expensive things, a lot of things there, but we're hoping through the collaborative process we can change some of that stuff. You know, I buy Forest Service contracts just like you do. I know what's going on there. So we're hoping that we can find some ways to help with that. You know, getting shut down for a puddle or whatever it may be. We're hoping to. That's the things that cause us strife and you strife. But we're hoping as consensus in the group, we can do that. Removing more volume per acre will be more money and cheaper logging costs. Any way you add it up. And, you know, that's another one of the goals we have here. And so anyways, the inefficiencies with the timber sale contract, you know, we're working on that. But we just started, so
yeah, my only experience, Jim, is authorizing the check to be cut to pay more.
yeah.
We'll just keep it going. So, you know, I can just tell you, there's regional differences, and you know, you come to this region, and everybody has a thought process. You go to another region. The pace and scale in some of the projects I'm involved with that are stewardship contracts are at a level that I'm extremely happy with, and my contractors are extremely happy with. Can we get that to happen here? We got to do something to try. One of the outcomes we asked the Secretary Vilsack in his recent visit was, you know, 70's not enough. We know that. It's not going to give us the economic bang or potentially even the monitoring scale that we need to substantially, scientifically prove these projects out. So we wanted to do 6 or 7 in a row. So it's kind of then it's like a harvest unit. You know, you could say it's 7 CEs, but you know, we decided we need to get 1 or 2 of these going and get them to a level where we can really see things go up so that we have an economic impact. Because, I mean, a lot of times we try to, you know, talk about things. If we don't have economy of scale, we don't have efficiencies, they're not going to be viable. It's just the market will support unviable operations. So, you know, we want to do more. We want to get the pace and scale up. Everybody says that term to John's point, but we're here to try to get something going. And you know, I speak again from experience in other regions where it has worked. And you know, I can say with a straight face, I have a good stewardship contract in Klamath County. You know, can we get a good one on the peninsula? It's up to everybody in this room to make it happen.
No, and honestly, it's part of the reason you see a lot of folks who have businesses to run and organizations that they're involved with, and they don't have to be involved with this, but for the fact that they see upside in it, right? They actually believe that there's opportunity here, because clearly just doing, if we keep doing what we've been doing, we're not going to get any farther than we've been. So, go ahead, Reed.
I like your question, Jim, and what's important to realize about a collaborative is a lot of the strength and wisdom is going to come from the open invitation that the collaborative made to folks who are interested. David will have his opportunity to share his fish wisdom, so a better project can be designed. You'll have the opportunity to say, hey, I know how to do logging. Let me show you and talk about it, and they can design a better project. So the power of a collaborative is the corporate wisdom and the willingness of folks to work together towards that end result of addressing economics and the ecology.
At the risk of hopefully keeping my foot out of my mouth, I'm not a logger, but I've been out in the woods a lot, and I want to follow up and say, you talk about skips and jumps on slab camp. I assume you're talking someplace up in the Quill Scene or Dungeness.
About swim, yeah.
And I know the geology is steeper and looser there, and I've walked on H to Z, and it's flat and doesn't have those risks, so we should be able to pull it off. But the follow-up is provide the information. I'd like to see the sale documents and layout from that slab camp skips, so I can compare it to what we're doing here. So that's all I have to work on is comparing stuff.
And I'll just
These
add
guys
really
have to give me the
quickly
numbers.
to Toby and Jim, so the skips and gaps that we're doing are designed to achieve some ecological outcomes, leaving particular species in clumps that exist already to grow bigger and provide more biodiversity, but also to create operational efficiencies so that if there's a clump of trees that meet the DBH and stand criteria that Dave and Knox and Matt and Paul and Norm need, that those can be gotten, but we're leaving trees to blow over, we're leaving trees to grow up, we're leaving trees to provide habitat in places that topographically and hydrologically and in terms of and geologically make sense. So we're trying to design these for ecological outcomes and for operational efficiency. And if they didn't work at slab camp, like Toby says, we need to be able to build on what did work and what didn't.
Yeah, and then, just to Rita's point, sorry, yeah, this is part of the conversation. Your feedback is great, and David's feedback is great. I think David, I think a lot of us would love to come walk the land. It sounds absolutely amazing what you've done there. And Derek, my understanding too, right? Do you want to talk about the 100 acres versus 70 acres flexibility around that regarding David's?
Yeah, so we've got, this unit that we have is, it's actually about 140 acres when the Forest Service said here's an area, and so we're basically going to take about 100 acres of that and then do commercial harvest from 70 of it. And again, if we could do the whole 100 or more, we would, but that's where we're at. And so that gives us that 30 acres to, if we find that we haven't found any yet, but any riparian features, or there ends up being a lot of reasons why you need to leave some areas, some unharvested skips or whatnot, for ecological reasons, for the variety of different habitat or plant, or all the different considerations that go into these things. And again, that's some of that stuff is something that I certainly does have real ecological benefits. Essentially, when we're doing this thinning stuff, we're trying to create a more diverse forest. It's got some areas that are really open, some areas that are dense, and so a lot of areas kind of in between, and that creates more niches, more habitat for different kinds of plants, different kinds of critters. So that's the idea, to create that variability out there. So we've got enough area to work with, and again, I know if you might design this differently, and I love to get your input for sure on these kinds of things, because I've worked with a variety of operators as a consultant, and oftentimes they'll take, so yeah, we'd love to get your input or any other people who have that on the ground experience.
Which son you signing up?
So we got a few more questions and on a little bit more time. So I had a hand here and a hand there. So let's keep them brief. And
my name's Bert Paul, and I'm a local business. I go back all the way to the Old Growth Commission, which came out in a collaborative process, much like this, and lasted for a couple of years. And we came to a consensus with a broad range of people. And then shortly after that, spotted owl was listed and the lawsuit started. And timber harvest for Forest Service went from between 60 and 90 million board feet down to 3.9 million board feet, and has pretty well ceased ever since. The Department of Natural Resources harvest went from 200 to 300 million board feet, sometimes higher, down to 40 million board feet. When we came out of the Old Growth Commission, we were promised that there could be a continuous shield forest in the DNR that was 140 million board feet year after year with the way things were growing. Well, that all stopped, and to make a long story short, our mills have just closed. We have no more mills in Forbes, or two large mills, and that's because of the supply of timber. We've got the best growing area probably in almost in the United States of America for forest, and we can't harvest them. So I guess I congratulate you on the process, and all I can say is good luck. I hope I live long enough to see some progress. I do have one question. Is the Forest Service actually doing any timber harvest, or are they doing thinnings only to turn it into whole growth forest? So we do a treatment on a piece of land, we thin log it so that it'll become an old growth forest and we'll never go in and touch it again.
It depends on the area. A lot of the Olympic National Forest is designated as late successional reserve with the primary goal of accelerating old growth development. So there we do commercial thinning to accelerate the old growth development. And our current volume is about 23 million board feet a year, commensurate with our funding and staffing. We also have some other areas that we have not worked in as much, and it's less areas, the adaptive management areas. And the collaborative is interested in exploring options within the adaptive management areas, still within the requirements of the Northwest Forest Plan. How can we do better in managing that resources? And part of the better is not just the ecology, it's the economics and the timber produced. So I do hope you live long enough to see the results.
Yeah. We have one here, and then I got you.
My name's Harold Brunstead. I've been involved in this for 45 years. The collaborative is advertised as a stakeholder collaborative, but it really isn't. There are two stakeholders at the table. And that creates a lot of restlessness in a lot of people in the community. That said, what Jim Bowers mentioned about they sent the clipboard around to sign up. And they laid out the qualifications you needed to sign up for that. Whether you read with all the stuff, read with all the stuff, the qualifications to get on that or sign that is, pretty limited. They need more people on the board to contribute. Jim Bauer brought up a real good one. You need a logger on your board and could be actively involved in helping with it. I've thinned I logged for 35 years. I thinned the last 7 years I thinned. And I look at some of these thinning projects, the prescriptions are, it's pretty disturbing the way they turn out. And I understand what they're shooting for, because I've been to Northwest Forest Land and all of the other stuff. But some of them are real mess. And so there's hopefully, there can be some adjustments made to eliminate. Some of them look good. The other concern I have is that the prescriptions that we talk about seem to suggest a one entry operation. Because if you're going in and thinning and leaving blank spots, and in this country on the west side, that's going to fill up with hemlock very fast. So what about a re-entry? Is that going to eliminate the entries? Is there going to be any more re-entries? And how are you going to handle that? You're eliminating, are we setting up a condition that, well, we can't go back to that, we're going to mess it up. And I'm looking down the road. Nobody seems to talk about, other than this gent here who's up in age like I am. I'm up in 78, so I've been around a long time. They haven't even started logging on the Olympic National Forest when I was born. And I was raised in Quinault, so I grew up with all the entries down that area of the peninsula. Familiar with all the roads that were built in the southwest part of the peninsula. But I'm concerned about what's down the road, and the mill people ought to be too. And a couple of things that I hope can be implemented in the collaborative is to try to generate some changes in the prescriptions that the Forest Service follows. They're pretty rigid. I mean, there needs to be some changes that can be reflected up the change through the regional office, and hopefully, you're looking at the Northwest Forest Plan now, possibly to implement some changes in the forest plan from recommendations that might originate from a collaborative like this. So that's what I'd like to see, and I would recommend that there ought to be a county representative, whether if they're just there as an advisory. The county people ought to be there anyway. All the peninsula counties should be represented somehow. There ought to be a representative that will sit in for the counties. The loggers, recreational interests, the hunting interests. There's a lot of things that happen in their prescriptions that they do on the forest style. They open up roads, and then when they leave, get done with the project, they destroy it. Well, in this country, open up that road, whether they close it off or not, it's a trailway. And you don't get too far in this country off the road if you're not young to be able to get around. The other thing I'd like to see promoted is off-road vehicles in some of these areas, particularly during hunting season. I mean, I'm old. When I hunt now, I'm pretty careful where I go, unless I have a grandson to help me pack. But if I got a place where I can walk in a couple of miles, and when it comes time to pack, I can run in there with my quad, get it out. That's important, but they got some of these roads that they just destroy. The elk won't even walk down. I mean, they pile stuff on there, the elk avoid it, they go around it. So those are some of the things I'd like to.
Hey, Matt, you want to speak? You touched on a lot of issues, but you want to?
Yeah, I'm trying to go back. I'm trying to go back there and keep track of it. When it comes to especially the board diversity and the diversity of the group that you see here, that is something that actually does weigh on us. But the one thing, you heard the congressman speak to it earlier, of kind of going in phases. Phase one really was seeing whether or not this group of people could sit around a table and actually decide if there was a point in getting to where we are today. Took 2 years. Was it painful? Do I wish personally that it took us 6 months? Yes. But the reality is it's taken us the time to get here, and that's taken that first phase to get to the point of deciding, is there anything that we can agree on to move forward? We've gotten to that point where we have found things to agree on and move forward. So now the time is to bring folks in, build that diversity. Jim, I hear you. If you look at my comments that I provide on Forest Service projects throughout Region 6 that I comment on, I'm a forest engineer by trade. Spent 15 years in private industry, 7 for DNR. I get the economic aspect of it. That's been driven hard into my head is, economics. One of the things out of that, Derek and I talking about, the Forest Service does have some rigidity in their handbook that causes some inefficiencies, like roads. Well, Derek and I are talking, is there something that we can do to help the Forest Service change that still meets all of the ecological goals, that helps on the economic side? And I've talked to another forest about it now, and they like the idea because they're seeing the same thing. Outside the handbook, we can create different prescriptions, still meet all of our water quality goals and all that, but can enhance the economic side of it. So that, you're right, we don't lose any more loggers, so they can run these projects. Is 60, 70 acres gonna make a difference in adding another side to the industry? No, but it's a step, it's a move forward. But, I think, so building out that diversity is a big thing. Like I mentioned earlier, it's the keeping to those bullet points. Yes, I mean, at some point you gotta have the conversation about some of those other issues, but if you start to stray away from those, what I've found in other groups I work with is you end up spending all your time working on something else and not on what the core group that's kind of come together. So, I mean, that's the whole point of having these public meetings, getting these things rolled out, getting the interest, finding out who does want to come play. I mean, it takes time, it takes commitment, and so that's part of the reason why those sign-up sheets were set up the way they were, was to really make sure that people wanted to be committed, because it does take time and commitment. I mean, one of the other collaborators I'm on that, Derek mentioned earlier, the Pinchot Partners, we're constantly working on trying to maintain that commitment level, because we do have some folks that come in, they fade out, they come in, fade out, and that doesn't help in progress. So, is there anything else that I missed? I was trying to write notes.
I want to talk to Harold about his second entry. Is this just going to be a one-entry deal? Now, with H to Z, we're going to be doing trying the different patch cuts up to an acre and that sort of thing, but we're going to be thinning in between. So the goal is to go back in the areas that we thin and patch cut those and have an ongoing thing. So we are planning, because it is an AMA, we can go back in there and do that. Now, and the LSR, you're somewhat limited. To be honest, you probably can't go back in there.
What if it blows down? What happens if it blows down?
It'll be on the ground.
It'll rot.
It'll be on the ground if it blows down. If we have resources to look at a silvicultural treatment that meets the requirements of the Northwest Forest Plan, it could be explored.
Go ahead. I know we're reaching our witch hour, but he's had his hand up for a while, so I beg your indulgence for us to run a little bit over time.
And I appreciate the effort of everybody that's here. My name is Don Grafstrom. I'm a former sawmill owner. I'm the president of the Forks Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here because of my concerns over the failed, mostly Forest Service policies in our area. I had a mill that had to close down in 1992 because it was more important to let millions of board feet rot on Ellis Mountain, despite the fact we brought the Forest Service, the Audubon Society, and your predecessor was up there at the time and said, we will harvest this timber. They never harvested that timber. Like you said, it lays on the ground today, rotting, and my sawmill rotted away too. I tried diversifying. I tried buying logs from Oregon. My clients didn't want to buy logs from Oregon. They wanted to buy Olympic Peninsula timber because it grows well here. So I changed what I'm doing. I'm I think, a supporter of this community. I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce. Now, because of policies, the Chamber of Commerce can no longer do its logging and mill tour, which we were providing free, an educational tool for people that come to this area. We don't have any mills to go to anymore, you know. I applaud what you're trying to do to work together, but I'm just concerned that, as Bert Paul said, the goal here is going to be to create more national parks. So I hope that we're actually going to be creating some jobs where you're actually harvesting timber and not forcing harvesting of timber in other parts of the world where trees don't grow as well and they don't have the good environmental policies that we have. Thank you.
Anyone want to speak to that? I appreciate you raising the concern, and I appreciate you being here too. And let me just say that to everybody. You know, you're involved with the Chamber of Commerce. I'm sure there's folks who are involved with the Chamber who are running their businesses right now, but still might have an interest in being involved with it. PABA, and you know, I read your letter. If there's folks in PABA who weren't able to make it here or didn't see the articles in the PDN or the Forks Forum, send word out to your members and make sure they get in touch with us. Judith Morris runs our office here on the peninsula. You can pop her an email and she can get them in touch with the rest of the collaborative group.
Excuse me,
yeah.
Representative.
Yeah.
This sheet that was sent around was something that I thought we were going to be able to be involved, but the first line of that sheet prevented any of the democracy in the front row here from signing it, because it starts off by saying that we agree with all 6 goals of the collaborative. So because none of us in the front row could agree with that, now you don't even have our information of people that took time out of their day to come here because we are concerned, but because we don't agree 100%, we're not part of the process. So that bothers me.
Matt, do you want to speak to that issue again?
Pardon? So, I mean, here's how I'll address that. Other members of the collaborative can weigh in if they think I'm going out of bounds, but because I probably will go out of bounds and I need to. We may have had a poor choice of words and agreeing. The key thing is needing to support, because if you're coming into a group that has taken the time and effort to build the trust they have, and you may not necessarily agree, but you're going to actively work to undermine the bullets the group has come to form, you're not doing any benefits to the group. That's just, I mean, I hate to be blunt and honest, but that's really the reality of it is if you're coming in with your own agenda to completely change the direction that a group has spent time building trust on, right from the start, that's not going to help continue to help build trust. Now, does that mean that you can't come in and you may not support bullet number 4 100%, and you help the rest of us learn why maybe we needed to tweak that going forward? Yeah. I mean, that's the whole part of the collaborative, is sitting around and talking. But if you're coming in right from the very start, we've seen it in other collaboratives around Region 6, if you're coming in to blow holes in it, to fight against it from the very start, all you're going to do is blow up a group. That's really all you're going to do. So did we pick maybe the wrong word that says I have to agree? Maybe we did. Change it to support.
Yeah,
I mean,
sign up.
The thing is, sign up, come participate, give your input. That's what we really need. That's what we really want. The whole goal of this was to avoid that one person, that group coming in and saying, you know, I'm sort of okay with one, but I hate the rest of these, so I'm going to come in and do everything I can to make the thing fail. And that's
Most
really.
of us would like to have signed up to be on your mailing list.
Good, sign up.
Please do,
Yes.
then sign up,
Please
please
do.
sign up.
That isn't what that is.
Well, it is.
Change the word.
So why don't we, if you're not comfortable, a blank piece of paper.
Yeah.
Just sign it.
If you don't want to sign that, it says I agree. We'll give a blank list and a blank piece of paper, and we want your contact information so we can start doing better. Hopefully, we'll have that coordinator in position here shortly so that we are a little bit more effective at doing things like getting website updated. Outreach.
There's a clipboard over there.
Name Johnson, resident of Fort. It's just a real quick thing. Everything happening here is gonna affect my generation. And so I'm just curious to know where information is available that might be in layman's terms so I can understand the science behind it. All of it, where does a person start? That's really what
The Pacific Northwest Research Station has some, and the Forest Service, and the University of Washington College of Forest Resources all have some great fact sheets and summaries of research that are written up as in layman's terms. And if you would like to take my card, I can connect you via email to all of those listservs.
Is this
all of those websites.
information that both sides agree on as far as facts?
I believe so. It runs the gamut. So PNW is and Oregon State University, all of these groups are working with the timber industry and environmental focus, and pulling in researchers to do applied research, looking at responses on the ground and then parsing it so that the public can understand, so it's not scientific-ese.
And we know we need to get our coordinators so that we actually have a website that has some information.
Yeah, I mean, the first simple thing that comes to my mind is putting a very basic dictionary up there. What is a CE, categorical exclusion? What is a skip? What is a gap? Because unfortunately, for those of us who've been in this arena for a while, we start speaking all the acronyms and short things, and it takes people reminding us to explain what we're talking about, explain what those initials stand for, because I even run into them. I've been in the industry a long time, and I still run into them every once in a while. I'm like, what on earth is that supposed to mean? So,
Yeah. Go ahead, Carol.
Is the collaborative going to have staff then, and do they have a budget? And if so, how much?
So, I'm not organized that.
Yeah.
We have,
Coordinator. Each group is funding the people to be at the table, or, semi-volunteer in our case. So, we don't get much. And, Secretary Vilsack said he'd help us find some money, and we will have a coordinator. We're not looking to staff up, but, somebody who's working a day or a couple days a week is gonna make this work much better and quicker, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and one note on that is that the conservation groups in the collaborative pooled resources to be able to hire, with industry's blessing, Derek Churchill as the consulting forester for the collaborative. So he's right now the one sort of extra staff person that the collaborative has hired, but then all of the groups and companies here are investing staff time for all of us up here to participate in the collaborative.
The short answer, Carol, is we're hoping to get a part-time coordinator to do all of that administrative stuff, which then at that point will require actually putting together a budget and line items of what we're spending our money on and where it needs to go. But right now, we're self-funded and we don't have a coordinator and trying to figure out just how to fund that. A couple of the other collaborators are fortunate enough they have a little bit of money, and they have a part-time coordinator that works on a few of the other forests, and that's kind of what we're trying to model after, because it takes time to take meeting notes. I've been trying to take meeting notes, and I'm horrible at it. updating our website, doing those type of things, just scheduling meetings takes time, and we need somebody to do that, to take that role, because we also all have other things going on, and sometimes we slip on getting those things scheduled.
And we'll have good notes. Thanks for recording.
Yeah.
I know Bernard wanted to address that too, and then I want to respect all of your times. I know you're taking time out of here, so let me kick it to Bernard, and then I'll just say a few words in closing. And
okay, you might, in regards to funding facilitators in particular, the state of Oregon does that for the collaboratives working with the National Forests in Oregon. So you might reach out to your state representatives to try to develop a similar kind of program. In terms of the information.
Out of Sodago. Yeah.
Well, you should talk to them. In terms of information, ONRC is a information broker, and anyone can come to talk to us about where to find out things and decipher some of the language that we use too often.
so we've hit our witching hour and then some. I want to thank everyone for taking the time, and I want to thank you for your interest, and for those of you who are willing to stay engaged and stay involved, I want to thank you for that too. I also want to thank you for your passion around these issues, and you know, you mentioned the challenges you faced in '92. That's when I was graduating from Port Angeles High School, and frankly, some of the challenges our community and our region faced during that time period is why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's why I went into economic development professionally, because I don't want to see communities face the challenges that Forks have faced, that Port Angeles has faced. We got to do better, and that means we can't keep doing things the way we've been doing it. And you know, I think you see a group of folks who, historically, to say the least, have not always been cordial in a room together or in the forest together, but actually trying to do things a bit differently. And so if you share, you know, there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And this is an effort that's going to require people being engaged and being involved and hopefully getting us going far together. So I invite your continued input and your continued participation. I really want to thank you for taking a few hours out of your day. All right? Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.